there everyone, Coach Brandon here today with Coach Adam, and he's going to be helping me show you guys the rear triangle attacks from our back attack system. Now this is not the only time we're going to see the rear triangle. We're going to see this again when we get to our triangle attack system, and we spend a couple months looking at triangles. But this will be a good introduction to it, and it is a very important part of the back attack system. So far we've looked at the rear naked choke, and we've looked at straightjacket grip fighting. But even with those straightjacket grip fighting tricks and using the hand to penetrate the neck, sometimes you still won't be able to get the breakthrough against tough and talented, knowledgeable resistance, because the neck is a very small target. Okay, it's only this big. Your opponent, if you are only attacking the neck, your opponent only has to focus on defending the neck. If that's all you go for, that's all they have to defend. And if the only thing they have to defend is this little target about this big, that's not very difficult for them to do. So we need to learn how to distribute our attacks around the entire rest of the body in order to get the breakthrough against tough, talented resistance over time. We're going to look at a number of other ways to attack around the body, with the rear top lock, with crucifixes, with the cross-body ride, and of course the rear triangle. This week is going to be just about the rear triangle, and we'll get to some of the other methods later, okay? So I'm going to add his back here. He's going to face the camera. And again, remember that as I go for the neck, Adam has all of his defensive tools to strip this hand away. Even if I manage to trap his arms, you know, he's got this, maybe I'm here, and he pummels his hand free, he goes back and starts pulling my neck down again. Sometimes I'll get almost to the neck, and then during the resistance he'll free his right arm, like he'll move his elbow, and he'll get that free, and then he'll tear this down. And it gets to be a hassle. It can be very difficult to try to get the breakthrough on the neck against tough, talented resistance. We have to be able to distribute our attacks around the body. Now, the first one we're going to look at, the rear triangle. The principle behind it is the asymmetry between our upper body strength and our lower body strength. If I can't get the breakthrough with my arms, my weaker arms, he's pulling them down, he's stripping my arms down. If I ever get to here and I can start to come up and get to a rear triangle position, I can now use the strength of all of my leg power to squeeze and put the choke on. So in situations where maybe the arms weren't strong enough to get the breakthrough, the legs may be strong enough to get the breakthrough, and oftentimes they will be. We're going to look at how to troubleshoot the rear triangle. We're going to look at what our opponent wants to do to defend, and we're going to look at what I can do to overcome his defenses. And then after that, we're going to look at the last step of the rear triangle attacks, and the last step of our triangle system, really. If at any point the figure 4 triangle is not choking your opponent, and the choke is failing, attack the arm. Anytime you have a triangle, one of your opponent's arms is caught in the triangle, and the caught arm is very vulnerable to a series of follow-up attacks if the choke doesn't work. So with all that precursor knowledge, let's start getting into the nuts and bolts of our rear triangle system. So let's start facing the bleachers here, Adam. And we fall onto our side. And I'm going to use our same grip fighting strategies that we looked at in order to trap the arms for our straightjacket. Okay? Now sometimes his chin might be tucked so strongly that I cannot break underneath, cannot get the breakthrough, I can't get underneath the jaw. And so I may want to forfeit the choke. We'll see how to do this in a bit. Let's start coming up and transitioning to a rear triangle. Other times, maybe I have an opponent who's looking to escape, and he's going to use his heels to dig into the mat to do something like a reverse shrimp, but he's going to, sliding down. And as he does that, in order to free his arm, he's going to punch his hand up toward the ceiling as he slides down, and sometimes he'll put himself into this scenario here as he tries to escape. Now if I stay here too long, he can thumb post behind my ankle, and he can start to get out. However, if during this moment I realize that he's slipping out of the back and he's slipping out of his straitjacket, I can roll over to the other side as I take his arm up over his head to my chest, and we can turn it into a rear triangle. So these are different ways we'll get there. Okay, so I can either I can initiate and try to force him into a rear triangle, or sometimes Adam will initiate an escape, and his escape will lead me into the rear triangle. Now let's look at the details of how to get there. Once we're here, let's move a little bit, we're almost out frame. I'm here and I trap. Now let's say I can't get the breakthrough, and I decide, okay, it's time to move on to another attack. It's time to, maybe I'll try the rear triangle. I'm going to forfeit the choke. I no longer need the head trap because I'm not interested in choking my opponent. The head trap is required for a good rear naked choke. His head trapped in between my head and my choking arm. That's what I need for a choke. Because I'm not interested in a rear naked choke, it is now permissible for me to break that rule of the head trap. And I'm going to bring my choking arm to the near side of the body. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift Adam's hand off his chest, and I'm going to go wrist to wrist, getting a wrist deep grip around Adam's wrist, just like so. My second hand is going to release the initial grip, and I go with a wrist deep grip here around the elbow. So my left hand controls the end of the upper arm, the end of this lever, and my right arm controls the end of this lever, the lower arm. So I'm maximizing leverage on the arm. Now from right here, my right leg is going to come up over the shoulder, and I keep my heel tight to the chest. That's important. If, as I bring my arm up, if my heel comes away from my chest, Adam can easily pummel his arm back inside my heel, and now there's no more triangle. I don't have that arm excluded from my legs. Remember that all triangles require me to have one arm in the triangle and one arm out of the triangle. It's this straitjacket grip, or the straitjacket leg control, that keeps his right arm out of my triangle. If at any point I let that arm back in, the triangle's no more. So let's make sure that when I make this transition and I go wrist to wrist and wrist to elbow, that as my right leg comes up over the shoulder, my heel stays tight against the body. Now, I want to start to get Adam's weight off me. So I'm going to start to extend my legs, both legs, my left leg as well, and my right leg, in that direction over there. I start to extend and put them down, like so. Now from here, I'm going to roll onto my right side to put myself in line with Adam here. So my spine and his spine are lined up together. Notice that as I did that, I kept his arm glued to my chest. Okay? We'll come back more to this later, but I want to keep his arm stuck to my chest. That was the point of the wrist-to-wrist grip and the wrist-to-elbow grip, is so I can take his hand and his knuckles to my chest as I come over here. Now from this position, I'm going to kink my two legs together, just like so. So my two lower legs point in the same direction. Now I'm going to lock a figure four, and then I'm going to come down here, I'm going to hand assist, grabbing my own heel, and I'm going to pull my foot and both of my knees up toward my chest. And that starts to expose the neck. Now Adam's elbow, his left elbow here, being pulled against my chest, keep his neck open. So now when I squeeze, I have my finish. Adam's arm being down here will help him to protect his neck. If I figure four, but I let Adam bring his arm down, well, look at how his shoulder stops my leg from making an adequate connection to the neck there. When I can take his arm up over the head and I bring his bicep to his ear. This arm now does not block me from getting a good connection of my legs to his neck, and I can get a good choke. So I'm going to show that one more time, and then we'll go through and we'll start going through the troubleshooting. So one more time, this time with less breaks, okay? Or less stopping. So we're here, and I go through my whole grip fighting series. And I get the straight jacket. Now from here, I'm going to try to penetrate underneath the neck, but Adam's not having it. So I decide, okay, if my arms aren't strong enough to get the breakthrough, let me get my legs involved. The stronger limbs. I forfeit the choke. Lifting his hand, I go wrist to wrist. Then I take my left hand out, I go wrist to elbow. Now my right leg, I uncross my ankles, and my right leg, keeping tight to his chest, comes up here, getting over the shoulder. And I stretch my two legs out, extending my legs in that direction as I keep Adam's hand pulled above his shoulder line, keeping his knuckles to my chest. I roll over to my right side, so I line up with us. So my side line up with Adam's, and I kick my legs, just like so there's no space. I lock an initial figure 4, and then to tighten it up, I come down here and I use a hand assist, and I pull my two knees up to my chest to expose the neck. Then I squeeze, and we have our finish. Now let's go through some troubleshooting. Initially, we talked about the importance of this arm. I need that arm extended up over his head to expose the neck. Adam is going to try to connect his hands, and he's going to try to keep his hands here in front of his chest so that his arm and armpit protect his neck. When we see this happening, one great thing we can do is we can try to take his arms back above the head. We can either do this by focusing on his trapped arm, or we can do this by focusing on his free arm, and I'll show you these methods. Another option that we can do is, let's say, for whatever reason, I feel like my triangle, the integrity of my triangle is coming undone. Maybe he's defending well, maybe he's thumb posting ankles or something like this. Another thing you can do is you can pummel your legs from below his shoulder line to above his shoulder line. And that will give me opportunities to go into front triangle attacks and to go into 3/4 armbar attacks. So once again, let's recap that. Adam's going to defend by connecting his hands and keeping his hands low. I can either force the trapped arm above the head. I can force the free arm above the head, which will allow me to bring the trapped arm above the head, which is what we really need. Or I can transition into a triangle, a front triangle, or a 3/4 armbar. Let's look at these options. So once again, we're here, and I'm going to use my straight jacket grip fighting to trap Adam's arms, like so I can go through for the neck. Now from here, I realize the choke isn't working. I can't penetrate the jaw, so I forfeit the choke, and I start getting ready to go to my rear triangle. I stretch him out like so. Now, as I switch to a rear triangle, exactly, he connects his hands, and I come over like so, keeping my legs. Now, I'm going to lock an initial triangle for sure. I want to set my closed wedges around his body. But now you'll see that Adam's arm is down low. If I try to squeeze my legs here, I'm not going to get a choke. He's defending well. So let's rotate Adam so we're facing the camera. And we end up right here. I'm going to show the entrance one more time facing this way so that you guys can see what it looks like from the other side. So we're here. I'm going to trap. I can't get the neck. I can't get the choke. So I forfeit. I go wrist to wrist. And I start pulling his arm over his head as I extend the legs, etc. Coming down to my right elbow, I kink my legs and I lock my figure 4, but I've lost Adam's arm. Okay? So I can do the free arm method. I'm sorry, let's do the trapped arm method first. where I'm going to focus my efforts on the arm that's trapped in my triangle. From here, I'm going to go through getting elbow to elbow. So as Adam's pulling his arm down, I go elbow to elbow right here, left elbow to his elbow. From here, I'm going to put my hand on my own thigh. And now I'm going to use a trick of leverage to try to pull that arm up. Using my hand on the thigh and my elbow under his elbow, I'm going to lean to my right, and I'm going to straighten my left arm, forcing his hand above his chest, above his head. So even if he keeps his hands connected, like either wrist to wrist, finger to finger, doesn't matter. But he's not going to let go. He's not going to let this grip go. He's going to try to keep this elbow flat, bearing down, and I straighten my arm to bring this arm above the head. And now I can lock my figure 4, squeeze, and we have our choke. So that's where I focus on the trapped arm. That's the trapdoor method. Let's look at that one more time. I get to my figure 4, and I've lost the ability to take his knuckles to my chest. He got his arm back down here. From here I go elbow to elbow. That's important. I don't just want to start wrapping my wrist around the elbow. I go elbow, the pocket of my elbow to his elbow. I bring my hand through and I place my hand on my own thigh. Now as Adam bears down with his elbows, I'm going to lean to my right, lifting my left elbow up, and I can force his elbow up above his head. Now I can squeeze my legs, and we have our figure 4, our triangle choke. Now, let's say for whatever reason, Adam's got this elbow really bared down, and I can't get elbow to elbow. The trapped arm method won't work. I can't get around this trapped arm. We can use a free arm method, where I focus my efforts on the free arm. Adam is entirely focused on keeping this arm down, keeping this arm strong. But he's not often thinking too much about this arm. So here's what I'm going to do. My left arm is going to go through his 2 arms like so, and I'm going to grab his elbow. Okay? So I'm here trying to pull this, it's not working. I come back, I go through, I grab the elbow here. Now I'm going to double up on it. Coming down to my right elbow, I go hand to hand over hand, and I grab this elbow. Now as Adam keeps his 2 elbows down, I use the strength of both my arms to pull this elbow up and over the head. Now with this elbow up, I keep this elbow caught with my right elbow, so he tries to pull his right elbow back down. It's not easy. And now with this elbow stretched above the head, he keeps his hands connected. He's going to try to keep this elbow down, but it becomes very hard for him to stop me from grabbing this elbow and pulling that elbow also above the head. So now when Adam tries to bring either arm down, I have both elbows controlled. I tighten my figure 4, I squeeze, and we have a good rear triangle. So that's focusing on the free arm method. So again, we're here. That. Just like so. I lock my figure 4. We saw the trapdoor method before, going elbow to elbow, forcing above. Now we're looking at the free arm method where I go through, I cup the elbow, and I pull his elbow over his head. The key here, a big key, I didn't mention this before. I like my right knee here to go inside of his arms. I like my right knee to get inside this bicep. So when I'm here and I'm here, I'm pulling. I pull his arm over my head. I pull until my knee gets in front of the elbow. All right, that's how I know I'm adequate. He's going to try to keep the other elbow down. But because this arm is stretched up high over his head, it becomes very hard for him to keep this elbow down. And now I can squeeze. And we still get the choke. We still get the breakthrough. Okay, so a couple good methods there. When we go for that triangle, and there he's tucking, we can take the free elbow up and choke. I'm sorry, the trap. We can take the trapped elbow up and choke. Otherwise, we can take the free elbow up first, then the trapped elbow, and then once again we choke. Now sometimes when I try to put the triangle on, my opponent is going to either hand fight with their hands, trying to thumb post on my ankles, or trying to post on the triangle legs, or trying to undo the triangle with the arms. Or he'll angle his body in such a way that I cannot get that angle behind him. So remember, for this rear triangle, I want to be directly behind him. But as I'm going for the rear triangle, he might walk his legs toward me and his head away from me, circle, yep, and put me in an angle where the rear triangle is just not that effective. If I want to get the rear triangle here, I need to keep coming this way. But if he keeps circling as well, he might turn right inside, come up on top, and he's getting out of back control. So let's see how I deal with something like this. And this happens quite a bit, so you need to have this tool in your arsenal. We're once again going to work to this side first. Heel. All right, I get the straight jacket. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to set this. Now, as I take everything over, this starts to happen. Now, I would maybe like to try to fall to this side and put my spine in alignment with his spine. But right now, I'm perpendicular to him. My spine is this way, and his spine is this way. We're perpendicular. So I could try to chase the angle and try to chase the rear triangle, but oftentimes I find that if I do that, he'll continue to circle with me and I'll lose it. Let's demonstrate that once. I try here, and I lose. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll stay perpendicular to him, and I'll pummel my left leg inside. Right now, I still have Adam's arm excluded from my triangle because I keep my legs together. If I'm like so and he pummels his arm around my foot, there's no more triangle. But as long as I keep this arm out, I can always still go after the triangle. So here's what I do. As I feel like I'm losing the angle, I take my left leg, I bring my knee back to my shoulder, and I pummel my foot through his two arms just like so. So for a brief moment, my two shins end up crossing in front of his far arm. Now, I'm going to extract my right leg, and I end up with a trap triangle, but in the other direction. And now I look for Adam's response. Sometimes your opponent will think they can get on top, and they'll turn up into you. As he turns up into me, I extend my left leg, so the pocket of my knee hits the neck, and I figure four my legs. Now from right here, I just give a squeeze, and we have a submission. If he comes up on top, don't let that intimidate you. You can still take a scoop grip to get an angle, and you squeeze your legs to get a finish. That's our front triangle. That's if he sits up into you. I go here, Adam starts to hit that angle just like so. Now again, because he's really trying to go perpendicular to me, instead of trying to face the rear triangle, I'm just going to take this leg and pummel it through. So I have my shins crossed in front of that far arm. Now I extract my bottom leg. In the previous technique, we saw that if Adam sits up and tries to get on top, we lock a figure four and we can choke him. This time, Adam's a little wiser, and he puts his head on the floor. He doesn't sit up because he knows if he sits up, there's a triangle right there. So we're going to switch to a 3/4 arm bar. For a 3/4 arm bar, I'll take my right leg over. I'll come back in a minute to describe what a full arm bar is, why this is 3/4. But for a 3/4 arm bar, my torso leg passes through the arms, and I put my heel right here next to the neck. Then my cross-face leg goes on top. My cross-face leg comes here. I put my heel right on top of my ankle like so. And now the real mechanism of control here is a back heel. I'm going to take my two heels and I'm going to pull them into my butt to trap the head. If I don't back heel, let's put your head toward the camera. If I separate the arms and I go to armbar and Adam starts bringing the hand like this, he can go into a a turnout escape or a hitchhiker escape. Now, in a minute, I'm going to have Adam do that very slowly, but I will need you guys to notice the importance of Adam's head position. In order for Adam to successfully hit a turnout or hitchhiker escape, his head needs to pass in between his shoulder and my butt. Very slowly, I'm going to demonstrate. Watch how the head passes underneath my two legs in front of my hips. Now he's going to keep going, coming on top, and he's out. So it's very important that there's enough space for Adam to get his head through there. When I take my two legs in this 3/4 armbar position, and I back heel, and now I ask, let's rotate. And now I ask Adam to do that same escape. There's not enough space for Adam to get his head underneath my two legs to the other hip. Go again, try again, Adam. There's not enough space, his head is stuck. Once again, look at if my legs are relaxed, there's enough space for Adam's head to go through. Okay, so that's very, very important. Now with the 3/4 armbar, Adam still has his hands connected, still locked up, that's fine. In order to separate the hand, there's a number of ways to separate the hands in the armbar. We're not going to go through all of them today. We're going to separate hand-to-hand grips here. I'm going to take his elbow, I'm going to drive it into my hip here on the side of my body closer to his legs. My right arm comes through, I catch his wrist with the crook of my elbow, and I pull his arm across my chest, almost like his arm is bent in Americana position, and then I lock up like a rear naked choke grip, like I'm trying to choke his wrist. From here I fall onto my right side, and even if he can't keep a grip here, if he can, it's very hard for him to do anything from here. Not to mention, he's going to try to keep a grip, and I'm using the strength of my whole body extending to separate the arms. I continue to extend, going back onto my back. I control the wrist. I double up on it, controlling the meat of the thumb, and then I break the elbow over my hip that's closer to his hips over here. So I pull toward the pinky, so I bend the arm the exact wrong way over my hip bone. And that's transitioning from the rear triangle into a 3/4 armbar. So again, this time, my opponent's connected his hands, and he has begun to walk to turn an angle to force me perpendicular to him. Remember, for the rear triangle, I want to be parallel. As I'm trying to force that parallel angle, Adam's going to walk his body so that we end up perpendicular. When I see this happening, when I see my opponent walking the body to get perpendicular, I pass my torso leg through into a 3/4 armbar position, and then I look at his behavior. If he sits up into me, I'll lock a triangle and choke him. If he's smart, I shouldn't say if he's smart, because I mean, either way, it's a bad situation for him. If he decides to not sit up, if he doesn't want to get put in a triangle, he'll keep his head down on the floor. And if he keeps his head down on the floor, then we pummel our legs to that 3/4 armbar position, and we break the arm using an armbar. Remember that in the triangle system, if you ever can't get the choke, attack the vulnerable arm. Okay? So real quickly, let's gloss over again those 4 troubleshooting options, and then we'll look at some various ways to attack the arm as well. Okay? So I've got that. We use our same straitjacket grip fight strategies, and then I decide I can't get through for the choke. Because I can't get the choke, I make a pass to a rear triangle. Now from the rear triangle, he connects his hands. If I end up parallel with him, we can go with the trapdoor method to take the trapdoor up over the head. If that's not working, maybe I can't get a good grip on that or whatever. Should have a figure 4, I'm sorry. Maybe I can't get a good grip here. I'll go to the free arm. I'll drive my knee through the hole. And then I'll pull the second elbow up. And that works very well. If during our transition into the triangle, here, during the transition, he goes just like that, perpendicular to me. I pass my torso leg through the hole, and I extract my right leg. And now I look for Adam's response. If he keeps his head down where it is, I'll go into my 3/4 arm bar. If, when I take my right leg out, he immediately tries to sit up into me, I'll lock a figure 4, and I'll choke him with a triangle. Okay. Now, let's look at another series of attacks out of the triangle. Remember, if at any point you figure 4 your legs and you just can't seem to get the breakthrough with the choke, for whatever reason, they found a little angle or they found a little pocket of air, a little space, and you can't finish the choke, attack the vulnerable arm. I'm going to show you 5 strong methods of attacking that arm. We have a straight arm bar. We have an overwrap arm bar. We have a variation on the Americana. We have the Kimura. And we have a Wristlock. Straight arm bar, overwrap arm bar, Americana variation, Kimura, and Wristlock. These are all strong submission attacks on that isolated arm. So let's look at it from the top. Right here. Pitch over and trap. And force, just like so. Okay? Now let's say I've got the arms connected to my chest, but Adam's like got maybe his chin turned and tucked in, and I'm trying to squeeze, and Adam's surviving. Maybe he's got pulling on the ankle, and it's not working, or maybe he's thumb posting my ankle, and trying to push it off his head, and like his head is caught, but I'm not getting a choke, and I've got to figure this out before he gets out. We can either take a straight arm bar, where I'll take his arm, using 2-on-1 grip over the thumb, turning the point of the elbow right toward my own hip. I drive my triangle on the floor, and I'll bridge my hips. Okay, so you guys can't see it, but I have my left foot planted on the floor, just like so. I can drive my hip up to the ceiling as I pull his elbow down over my hip for an arm bar. Now let's say you have an opponent who has pretty flexible elbows, and which does not seem to be the case with Adam right now, but let's pretend. Let's play pretend. Let's also